Hi everybody, my name is Diane Sarnat and I'm here today to read you one of my favorite stories. This is a folktale called It Could Always Be Worse. A folktale is a story that for generations was passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, grandparent to grandchild, or friend to friend, but it was passed by talking about it. It was only written down in the last 100 or so years. Now that some of these folk tales have been written down, they sometimes change a word or change a little bit of it, but the story becomes written down. Essentially, it's the same as it always had been. Today's It Could Always Be Worse was written by Margot Zemach, and you'll have to notice her beautiful illustrations. The pictures are just wonderful. There are a couple of words here you might not be as familiar with. One is the word rabbi. A rabbi is clergy. Some people might think of a clergy as a minister or might think of a clergy as a priest. If you're Jewish, your clergy person is called a rabbi. It's a very learned person that can help you with problems. The other word you might not know is hut. What's a hut? Well, in this case, it's a very small house. The people who live here, it's a one-room house. That means people eat in that room, they cook in that room, and they may sleep somewhere around the edges of that room. Let's get started. It Could Always Be Worse by Margot Zemach. Once upon a time, in a small village, a poor, unfortunate man lived with his mother, his wife, and his 6 children in a little one-room hut. Because they were so crowded, the man and his wife often argued. The children were noisy, and sometimes they argued too, and sometimes they fought. In winter, when the nights were long and the days were cold, life was especially hard. The hut was full of crying and quarreling. One day, when the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he ran to the rabbi for advice. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "things are in a bad way with me, and getting worse. We are so poor that my mother, my wife, my 6 children, and I all live together in one small hut. We are too crowded, and there's so much noise. Help me, Rabbi. I'll do whatever you say." The rabbi stroked his beard and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, do you have any chickens?" "Well, yes," said the man, I do have a few chickens, and I also have a rooster and a goose." "Oh, fine," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the chickens, the rooster, and the goose into your hut to live with you." "Okay, Rabbi," said the man, although he was a bit surprised and a little puzzled. The poor unfortunate man hurried home, and he took the chickens, and they were clucking, and the rooster, he was cock-a-doodle-doodling, and the goose, honk, 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 out of the shed and into his little hut. Can you imagine? When some days or a week had gone by, life in the hut was worse than before. Now, with the quarreling and crying, there was honking, crowing, and clucking. There were feathers in the soup. The hut stayed just as small, and the children grew bigger. When the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, well, what do you think he did? He ran to the rabbi again for advice. "Holy Rabbi, see what a misfortune has befallen me. Now, with the crying and the quarreling, with the honk, honk, honking, and the cluck, cluck, clucking, and the cock-a-doodle-dooling, and the feathers in the soup, Rabbi, it couldn't be worse. Please help me. The rabbi listened and thought as he stroked on his beard. At last he said, "Tell me, do you happen to have a goat?" "Well, I do. He's very old and he's very thin. He's not worth much." "Oh, excellent," said the rabbi. "Go home and take the goat and bring him into the hut with you." Thought the man, "Oh, no. You don't really mean it, Rabbi," he said. Come now, my good man. Do what I say at once," said the rabbi. So the man went home. When some days passed with the goat living with him, he couldn't stand it another minute. Let's look at this illustration. We see the mother and the grandmother cooking, and the man screaming, and the goose honking, and the children getting their hair combed and screaming, and everybody pulling at the chicken who was clucking, and now they have a goat butting his head everywhere and baa-baa-baaing. "Oh, I don't think I can stand it another minute," the poor unfortunate man said. The hut seemed smaller. The children were growing bigger. When the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he ran to the rabbi. "Holy Rabbi," he screamed, "now the goat is running wild. My life is a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, is it possible that you have a cow?" "A cow? Young or old doesn't matter," said the rabbi. "Yes, Rabbi, it's true. I do have a cow," said the man. Now he was really scared. "Go home then and take the cow into your hut." "Oh, no, Rabbi, surely not. You don't really mean that, do you?" "Yes, my good man, do it at once." So the man went home, and he had a heavy heart. He went out, and it was snowing, and he took his cow, moo, and dragged him into the house. Can you imagine what that house was like now? Oh my goodness! Look at this cow and the goat and all the other animals. When some days had gone by, maybe a week or more, life in the hut was very much worse than before. Everyone quarreled, even the chickens. The goat ran wild. The cow trampled everything. The poor man could hardly believe his misfortune. At last, when he could stand it no longer, he left that hut behind with the chickens cluck, 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 clucking, and the rooster. What was the rooster doing? He was going cock-a-doodle-doo. And what was the goose doing? He was honk, honk, honking. And the goat? Oh my goodness, he was baaing everywhere. And now there was a cow, and the cow was mooing. And he ran as fast as he could to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he shrieked, "help me, save me. The end of the world has come. The cow is trampling everything. There's no room even to breathe. It's worse than a nightmare." The rabbi listened, he stroked his beard, and he thought. At last he said, "Go home now, my poor unfortunate man, and let all the animals out of your hut. Take the cow out with his mooing. Take the goat out with his baaing. Take the chickens out with their cluck, cluck, clucking. Take the rooster out with his cock-a-doodle-dooing. And take that goose out with his honking." "Oh, I will. I'll do it right away," said the man. You can imagine he ran home as fast as he could, and he let the cow, he let the goat, he let the chickens, he let the goose, and he let the rooster out of his little hut. That night, the poor man and all of his family slept peacefully. There was no crowing, no clucking, no honking. There was no baaing. There was no mooing. There was plenty of room to breathe. The very next day, the poor man ran back to his rabbi. "Oh, holy rabbi," he cried, "you have made life sweet for us. With just my family in the hut, it's so quiet, so roomy, so peaceful. Thank you. It's a pleasure."